Hello, here we are again. This is car troubleshooting again, Technos here. Today we're gonna show you an interesting video about a Volkswagen Polo 1.4 TDI, engine code BWB, and it has an interesting problem. Let's have a closer look. So here it is. It's a 1.4 TDI. We did already some preparation work. Well, this is the car of my son, and he came home with the problem that he lost all his oil of the sump. Well, if you look very close, you see that there's a little hole there, just next to the screw. So it's worn completely. From the inside out, something was tearing and wearing on the inside, causing a hole inside. So, well, what could it be? We had to take some stuff off. So first of all, you have to remove the timing belt, of course, just to give you some hints and instructions for that. It's not very difficult in this car. First, you have to remove the engine support here. If you can do that, then you take the plastic cap off here. Then you see the timing belt. You can remove the tensor. Make sure that everything is on the right position. So you have to put it in the right position before you take the belt off, of course. Then you have to block the whole system. So here you see the camshaft. We blocked it with some special tool to hold this position. And down, if you look at the crankshaft, there's also one dot here. I made it white. It has to be aligned with this hole on top. So if you have everything on the right position, you can take the timing belt off, and then you see the rest of the whole system. Now, the biggest problem in this case was to remove this bolt. This bolt is holding this chain wheel, and as you can see, it's very tight. It takes a lot of power to remove that bolt. You have to tie it up with 120 newtons plus 90 degrees, so we're talking about a lot of force, and because through the years it's becoming really sticky. To remove this bolt, well, I made a special tool, and what I did is put a metal plate on top of it and have it rested on something that is stable enough to remove this bolt. But still, you're gonna need like a pipe of 1.5–2 meters before you even can get it out. One suggestion is to heat it up. If you heat this bolt on the outside, be careful that you remove the timing belt before you do that. If not, you will weaken the timing belt because of the heat. It will maybe melt or whatsoever. So when you remove the timing belt, you can really heat this up, and it makes it easier because it will stretch the bolt a little bit, and then you can take it off. So I will show you what I did. This is a metal plate, and to have the right sizes, you can take the original pulley, because those are the holes exactly positioned. Now, don't make the mistake that you can just put it in every position, because the holes in this pulley, they are not symmetric. So what I did, here's a tiny little bubble, and that comes in this hole. So make sure you have it on the right position, like this, and then you can put it on anything you want to copy. In this case, you put it on a metal plate. You can sign with maybe with a pencil or whatsoever. You can make some drawings on it. Make sure you have the right sizes and the right holes. So here is my plate, how it looked like. Now, after doing that, you can put this plate in position, as you can see, and tie it up with the original bolts. And now you have a very proper, stable way of getting the bolts loose, because here it is resting on the drive shaft, and you can put a lot of pressure on it. So after removing this, you can remove the lower wheel. Then you can remove this whole bracket after removing the screws. It's a 10mm screws. I think it's like 10 of them once you get the sump off. So that's something you have to do before. The sump is over there, as you can see. It was completely full of metal. Now, if you look on the inside, you can see the actual problem. Let me put it in the light. Here you can see it. The chain of the oil pump was wearing through the material, through the aluminium, and caused a hole that made it possible that the oil under high pressure was spraying out of the engine block. So that was the problem. Now, why did that happen? Let's have a closer look at this. Here you can see the balance shaft and the chain, and it's completely stretched, as you can see. Not only is the chain completely stretched, those plastics on both sides are worn, but above everything, this is the balance shaft, and here need to be also something like a sprocket. And you can see there's nothing, no teeth, everything is gone. So that's the metal pieces that we found in the sump. So what we have to do, we have to renew all those parts, all those wheels, a new chain, and put everything back in position. That means the balance shaft needs to be in position, the crankshaft needs to be in position, and then we can put the chain back on its position by looking at two chain parts that are different of color. They can be darker of color or red. Here's one, and here underneath there's the other one, which is darker. One comes on this point and the other one will point when we are ready with everything on top of this here. So now we are waiting for the parts. As soon as we have the parts, we will continue. So see you soon. So welcome back. This is another video of car troubleshooting, Techno Share. Today we're gonna discuss an interesting problem. It has to do with a big oil leak on a Volkswagen Polo in the area of the timing belt. So that could be several different things. So let's have a closer look. Well, we already have the car. It's a 2008 Volkswagen Polo, 1.4 TDI, and in this case engine code is BWB, but I think the BMN is very the same. So, well, the problem with this car was that this is my son's car. He was driving the car, nothing strange on it, and once in a sudden liters of oil came out of the engine block. And when we tried to find out where it came from, it seemed to be, you can see it, there's a tiny little hole inside the aluminium cover. Well, this is the cover that you can find behind the timing belt. So first of all, to see what's going on inside, we have to remove all this, and we have to start, of course, with taking off the timing belt. Well, sometimes oil in this area is leaking because one of those rubbers is gone that is surrounding the crankshaft. Here it is, just to let you know how they look like. Sometimes they wear, and then you have an oil leak that comes from the inside here behind the timing belt, and it leaks on the floor. But in this case, it was not just a drop, but it was pouring out in just a few seconds to minutes. The whole sump was empty, so there was something else going on. To have a closer look, we have to take several things apart, and we start, of course, by taking off the timing belt. Well, we did some preparation. Here you can see the cover is already removed. The auxiliary belt is gone. Before we made this video, we also removed the engine bracket to have a closer look on the inside for the timing belt. Here you see the tensor. Before you remove the timing belt, make sure that you have everything in the right position. So what I did, I marked it like this to make it very visible, and I also do it also on the belt itself, because this belt was new, just like a few weeks ago we put it on. so it's useless to put another belt on, and we can still use the same material like the tension and the belt. Well, to hold everything on the right position, you have to use some special tools. Here you see a pin that goes through this sprocket to hold the position of the camshaft. The same thing if you go on the lower part of the engine. You can see a white point. I made it white, of course, but there's a mark on that sprocket, and it has to be aligned with this hole here. Well, when you have that everything in the right position, you can take the timing belt off, and once you get the timing belt off, you can remove the pulley. To show you, this is normally the pulley that covers up the plastic tab and everything around it. So once you remove the pulley, the plastic cover and the timing belt, you have a look like this. Now we also removed the sump, as you can see, and because we had to know what causes a hole there from the inside out. Now our biggest problem was to remove this center bolt, and that's the bolt that holds the sprocket on the crankshaft. Well, it's amazing how tight that can be, and it takes a lot of force and effort to take that out. So you have to be really careful how to do it. You cannot just block the flywheel or put something between the camshaft or use the pin as I showed you before, because you will break it, and once you break that, you can even break the timing belt or other parts. So that's not very clear to do. What you have to do is block this sprocket very proper, and you have special tools. Volkswagen and Audi is using special tools that is screwed in those holes, and then you have a long arm, we're talking really about 1.5–2 meters, to block that sprocket. Now I did something myself. I created a tiny little tool. So what I did, just as an advice, of course you can try to do it yourself in another way. This is a quite thick material metal plate. So what I did, and the best thing to do is just use the original pulley to position the holes that you're going to make. I used the pulley and I copied the holes on the metal plate, but don't be fooled. Don't think that you can just put the pulley on the plate and copy the holes, because as you can see, the holes in this pulley are not symmetric. So first you have to see what is the right position. You see a tiny little hole there, that's the right position, and now all the holes are aligned. So that's the position you want to have. So if you take it off and copy that in the right way like this, then you have the good result. Now once you do this, you can take this plate or something else you create yourself, of course, and you can screw this metal plate on the sprocket with the original 4 screws, as you can see. Now what I did, I made this plate in that way that it will lean on the drive shaft. So that's a really stable position. And now you can remove this center bolt. And still you will see that it takes maybe a pipe of 1.5–2 meters to take it off. And it's really scary. So maybe a suggestion is to heat it up, just with a torch or whatsoever. Make sure that you remove the timing belt before you do that. You don't want to burn the timing belt or weaken it by putting too much heat to it. Okay. Once the timing belt is gone, you can heat this up, and then with a long pipe and the right tools, you can take that center bolt out. It's a 19mm multi-Torx, as they call it. So 90 millimeters. Well, let's remove this. So meanwhile, we are a little bit further. So I took this off. By the way, you cannot reuse this bolt because it's a special one. It will stretch at the right newtons and torques that you put on it. I think in this case it was 120 Newton meters, and after that 90 degrees extra to tie it up. So you have to order a new one. Now if you remove this sprocket, then finally you can remove those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts, and there are 4 others underneath connected with the sump. So when you remove this plate, this cover, and again this is not really easy because you don't want to break it. You know, in this case maybe it's not that important because we have to renew it anyway, but it can be very tight. So here it comes off the block. Maybe you can use a tiny screwdriver, but never use the screwdriver on the surface or between the surface that later on has to close the engine block and underneath the sump. If you do that and you damage this surface, you have of course a risk of oil leaks later. Now by having a look at this plate with a hole in it, now you see the real reason what happened and why the oil was pouring out. Now here you can see, let me put it in the sun. Oh, that's my cat, by the way. Hello. No, nothing to do with you. You can see that the chain of the oil pump was rearing on the inside and eating up all the material in such a way that at the end it caused a hole all the way through. There you can see it. So it is no use of only welding or replacing this plate, this cover, because we still have another huge problem, and I will show you what it is. Here you see the system of the oil pump and the balance shaft. This is the balance shaft that makes sure that the car is not moving too much or vibrating too much. So it's a very smart system. And here's a tensor. And normally you have 1, 2, 3, 4 sprockets that keeps everything in place, but you already see what's going on. This chain is so loose, it's stretched enormously. The plastic inside here is completely worn. Maybe the tensor is broken as well, I don't know. But as you can see here, there's no sprocket left. It's completely gone. There's no teeth. Everything is gone. So that explains those tiny metal parts inside the sump. So those are the rests of remains of a sprocket that seems to be there in normal condition. As you can see, now I can turn the balance shaft, which is of course not the idea. Should be in place. And this chain is way too long now. So to really solve our problem, we have to renew 1, 2, 3 and maybe 4 sprockets, a new chain and a new tensor plate. So that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to renew, of course, also this sealing that comes over the crankshaft to make sure that no oil will leak later on in a later stadium. We want to be sure that now it's open and available. We're going to do that straight away as well. So we ordered the parts. We have to wait for it. Hopefully tomorrow we have everything here, and we see you back then. And then we're going to continue by taking off all this, replacing the sprockets, put the chain in position. I'm going to tell you and show you how to do that, because there's a special trick to make sure that this is in the right position with the crankshaft. I will teach you that tomorrow. Okay, see you back later. Bye bye.